Now, I know that game week 33 isn't quite over yet, but there's already plenty to talk about. So here are players to buy and avoid ahead of double game week 34. I felt it made sense to start the video just by confirming and reminding you of the teams that have a double game week in 34. And you can see there are some other double game weeks likely to come up later on in the season, 35 and 37 as well. But this video, of course, is focused on game week 34. Teams with a double game week, we've got Arsenal, Bournemouth, Crystal Palace, Everton, Liverpool, Sheffield United and Wolves. So there are, 7 teams with a double game week. I'm going to take a slightly different route with this video than I normally do with buy and avoid, because I think there are just so many players you could be looking to bring in. I'm going to, of course, focus on those with a double game week in 34. And we're going to go position by position. So for each position, I've got one of these kind of grids laid out for, all of the picks in each position, basically. And then I'll talk through some of my highlights as well. So in terms of the goalkeepers, I think there are 4 goalkeepers with a double in 34 that I think you could genuinely pick. Raya and Pickford would be my 2 favourites. We'll talk about them in a second. Neto and Henderson, I'd say they're decent picks. I don't think Bournemouth have the best double. I think they probably concede in both of their games. And Dean Henderson and Crystal Palace, certainly not the best team in the league. So would you really want to back a Crystal Palace goalkeeper? I think if you've already got him, there's no reason to sell him, similar to Neto, and you can well start them. But to actually spend a transfer on bringing one of these 2 goalkeepers in, I'm not sure I would do that. And in terms of the avoid tier, I've got Kelleher in there. I think Alisson is due back any time now, really. We'll see in game week 33 who starts. It could well be Kelleher, but I would worry about Kelleher starting both of the fixtures in 34. And, if you're picking a double game week goalkeeper, you want them to play both games, right? And I'm not sure you can guarantee Kelleher's going to do that. And ultimately, we all know Sheffield United got a double game week, right? But you don't want to pick the Sheffield United keeper. All right, so I would actually say that Jordan Pickford is my favourite goalkeeper for double game week 34. I know he's got Liverpool as part of the double, but the one thing I like about Jordan Pickford is not only Everton have got 9 clean sheets so far this season, which isn't bad. I also just like the fact that he makes a lot of saves. He's got 3 saves per 90, and comparably with David Raya, who you can see here, I think is probably the best goalkeeper in FPL long term. But you might want to triple up on Arsenal via a different means as well, which I think leaves room for Pickford to come in. And one thing about Raya as well is he doesn't make nearly as many saves as Pickford does. Pickford makes twice as many saves, basically, or more than twice as many saves per game as Raya. We'll just go back to Pickford. And he's kept 9 clean sheets compared to Raya's 12, so there's not a whole lot in it. And I also just think, historically in FPL, in my opinion at least, the best goalkeepers in the game are ones that not only keep a good amount, decent amount of clean sheets, but ones that consistently get saves bonus. Whereas David Raya, he's basically Ederson of previous year seasons, because all he does is keep clean sheets, doesn't necessarily get saves, whereas Pickford offers a bit of both. And I'd say if you have an Arsenal players in your team for a double, you might want to look elsewhere from Raya, just because there are attacking players you might well favour. But of course, I can't deny David Raya is a good option, right? He's an easy route. If you want double Arsenal defence, I think he's an easy route into that. When you look at the other Arsenal defenders that you might want to pick, we'll get onto that in a second. They're a little bit more expensive than Raya, so he's an easy and cheaper route to get double Arsenal defence if you want that. And he's definitely going to get some clean sheets, right? Especially in that run, I think it looks good for clean sheets. The only thing that would kind of put me off is just his lack of saves. Now, if Arsenal keep a clean sheet, he's on the money for points, but if they don't, he's probably going to blank. All right, so that's goalkeepers out of the way. I wanted to talk about defenders. In my great picks category, I've got Gabriel, Saliba and White. I think those 3 are the strongest Arsenal defenders. I'd actually say beyond those 3, I'd avoid any other Arsenal picks like Zinchenko, Kivior. Wouldn't be too sure about them starting every game. And ultimately, if you're picking a player for a double game week, you want to pretty much guarantee they're going to play both of the fixtures. I've chucked in Van Dijk and Trent as well. Whether you want to, spend the money on Trent that he costs, around 8 million that he costs, that's kind of up to you. Van Dijk, I think, is just going to play every game, and I think Trent will probably do the same as well when he returns from injury. I think Aït-Nouri will be fine for game week 34. We'll talk a little bit about him in a second, but I put him in the great pick category just with how attacking he is. I think Everton defenders are decent picks. Branthwaite obviously just being the cheapest. He's nailed on to start. Don't mind him. And Mikalenko probably being the most attacking of the Everton defenders. So he's not too bad of a pick as well. I don't mind Zabarnyi and Adam Smith of Bournemouth. I'd say Zabarnyi for security of starts. And, well, whenever people have actually needed him this season, he's delivered. He's been a bit of a postman for people that wanted to start him. And Adam Smith as well. I'd say he's a little bit more attacking than Zabarnyi. Will probably play both games of the double, but just a little bit less nailed. Bradley of Liverpool, I'll talk about him in a second. I don't mind him as a pick, purely because of how cheap he is. And I've got a feeling he still gets in the team with Trent as well. I think Trent moves into midfield with Bradley playing right back. We'll talk about that a bit more in a second. And then Munoz, the wing back for Crystal Palace, looks extremely attacking and a very good player. I'd probably hedge away from Crystal Palace defence beyond this guy, but with the amount of attacking threat that he poses, I think he could well be a decent option. I would probably avoid any other Liverpool or Arsenal defenders though, just because I'm not sure you can guarantee any of the ones outside of the players I've mentioned to play both games. I just wanted to talk quickly about Gabriel. He hasn't played in Game Week 33 at the time of recording this video, but I heard that he missed Arsenal training with the injury. Well, he seemed to pick up a bit of a knock against Brighton. Obviously played in the Bayern Munich game. I could see him getting rested in 33, of course, with the second leg of Bayern Munich coming up. However, I think for Game Week 34, he should be fine, and genuinely think he's the best defender in the game right now. Nailed to start for Arsenal. He is such a threat from set pieces. I remember watching the Brighton game. He could have had a brace from set pieces. It was just kind of missing chances, basically. And yeah, Arsenal, not only is Gabriel a threat from set pieces, Arsenal are fantastic at creating chances from set pieces as well, and they're the best defence in the league. So you've probably got the one defender in the league that carries the most goal threat going into every game, playing for the defence that concedes the fewest goals. So for me, Gabriel, he's the best defender in FPL right now. We, of course, need to keep an eye on his fitness. I think he'll be back for 34, though. And it's a similar point with Aït-Nouri. Of course, missed Game Week 33. We've got a week, of course, of build-up to hear if he's going to be back for 34. Gary O'Neill seems to be fairly open in his press conferences about the availability of his players. So hopefully we get some news on Aït-Nouri. But a similar thing to Gabriel, I just think he'll be back fit for 34. I think they'll be prioritising that Arsenal game to have him back for. And he just looks to be one of Wolves' best players at the moment. In recent game weeks, he's played as a number 10/left winger. He's got 6 attacking returns in his last 7 games for Wolves in all competitions. He just looks like a really good asset. And at 4.7 million, right, you're going to want to play him for 34 and 35. But looking at 36 and 38 when he plays Man City and Liverpool, at the price he comes in and the fact you'll probably have other starting defenders you can switch for him, you can put him on your bench at 4.7 million, right? But with the attacking threat that he carries with him in the way he's been playing in recent games, I think we could see him being out of position for the rest of the season, to be honest. He's one of Wolves' most creative players. They're struggling for forwards at the moment. Cunha and Hwang are coming back, in fairness. But yeah, for creativity, they're struggling. And I think Aït-Nouri's providing that. And if he's fit for 34, which I think he will be, he's obviously a great option. One player that I think deserves a bit of airtime as well is Connor Bradley. Now, I think it's going to be quite a contentious point that I'm going to talk about here, and people will probably disagree. But I just think he's going to play. He's going to play with Trent in the same team. I just think he's been playing so well in that right back position that Klopp he's got a real task on if he wants to leave Bradley out. He's rested him in previous games gone by. I don't think he appeared at all in the Europa League game against Atalanta. But I think that was just a rest. And that makes me think, wow, Klopp's really prioritising this guy for the Premier League and he wants him in his starting 11. Like I said, I just think he's been playing so well that he can't really be displaced out of right back. And I think Trent, considering, well, the likes of Gravenberch and Szoboszlai have been a bit disappointing in recent game weeks, I think we could see Trent go into the midfield and Bradley keep the right back spot. And like at 4.3 million, right, I don't think it matters if he misses a few games. He's so cheap. And at Game Week 34, I think he's going to get some decent points, And when you look at his underlying numbers in attacking returns for the season so far, 4 attacking returns, 3 clean sheets in 9 starts. That's 8 returns in 9 games that he started. I mean, if you were looking at a striker that can, score 8 goals in 9 games for 4.3 million or whatever, you'd be thinking, wow, I want to get him in my team. That's the level of returns that Bradley's been offering this season. So I still think he's a good option. I would say, of course, it's a little bit more of a risk with Trent back in the team, but I just see him playing alongside Trent. So much so, I've got him in my team, and I'm hedging on him starting alongside Trent. Right, on to the midfielders then, and I think there are some obvious picks, right? The likes of Salah and Saka, I think, are obvious, and I'm not really going to labour the point on them too much. I think they're respectively the best players for both of their teams, and well, we've got a double game week, so I think they're pretty nailed on, right? Don't really need to talk about them too much. I think everyone already knows that. Eze alongside the two of them, I think, is another great pick. I believe his two fixtures, we'll talk about him in a second, actually. His two fixtures are West Ham and Newcastle. Not the best defences in the league, but I just think he could do really well in double game week 34. He's nailed for 90 minutes. I think he's come through his fitness issues of games gone by. He's on penalties and free kicks for Palace. I think he could be a really nice option. Into the decent picks category, got Luis Diaz, McAllister, Odegaard, Havertz, Sarabia of Wolves. I actually think even though he doesn't have a double, and he's playing Arsenal in fairness, I still think Cole Palmer is a decent option, even though he's only got a single game week. I think I'll be starting him in game week 34. I definitely wouldn't want to pick a Sheffield United defender, right? But I wouldn't mind Brereton Diaz. I think of all the Sheffield United assets that could get attacking returns, he's the most likely and seems to pop up with a goal in pretty much every time I see him play recently. So I don't mind him if you want to go a bit different. One player I did kind of miss is Olise. I think we just need to see his fitness levels for 33 to see if he's likely to play both games in 34. So I've not included him for that reason. He's just returning from injury, played limited minutes in 32, and we'll see how he gets on in 33. As for the avoid, I think pretty much any other double game week midfielder beyond this list, I wouldn't really want to touch. So yeah, stick to these guys on my screen. I think you'll be fine. Like I said, I really like Eberiche Eze for game week 34. He's got Newcastle and West Ham. I think that's a really nice double game week for him, for attacking returns at least. He's now to start. Palace's talisman seems to be genuinely involved in every single goal that Crystal Palace score, whether he gets the assist, the pass, the assist, or actually scores it himself. He's on free kicks, which he's really good at taking, by the way, and penalties. So pretty much every game he has a chance to score, even if he or Crystal Palace don't play well. He's only 3.2% owned, which I think makes him a really nice differential. Like I said, the fixtures are really good. His stats this season, I'll admit, are not groundbreaking, but I think the quality of fixtures he's got for the double game week make him a decent option. Now, Kai Havertz, he was going under the radar for a few game weeks gone by, but now he's fully on most people's radars, I would say. Currently starting as the number 9 for Arsenal. He's got 9 attacking returns in his last 7 Premier League games. Seems to be nailed on in that Arsenal starting 11. Arteta seems to really like him, and he's grown a lot in confidence under him as well. Seems to be playing 90 minutes pretty much every game. And I would say, you compare him to Odegaard, who might be another Arsenal asset that you're looking to get. I think Havertz is better than Odegaard because Odegaard seems to be playing a little bit deeper this season than he has done previously. And Havertz, I think, just seems to be at the coalface when it comes to attacking returns a bit more. 9 goals, 7 assists from 23 starts is really good. Wolves and Chelsea as his double. Come on, man, I think he's going to be good. And that's written in the stars, isn't it, for him to score against Chelsea. I really like Kai Havertz as an option. And if you can remember back along to when I spoke about David Raya and saying, yes, he's a good option, but do you want to use your third Arsenal slot on Raya? I'm thinking, ideally, the best Arsenal triple up, in my opinion, is Havertz, Saka, Gabriel. So, yeah, Havertz is a really good option. I just wanted to give a bit of love to Alexis McAllister, who, similar to Havertz really, nailed on to start for Liverpool and plays 90 most games. He takes the free kicks. And he's in decent form recently. 7 returns in his last 6 Premier League games. I put a question mark in there, could he be on pens? He is better at them than Salah, I would agree with that. But of course, we saw them both on the pitch in Salah taking a penalty against Man United. But, if Salah doesn't necessarily play all the minutes of every game, McAllister will be the backup penalty taker. And I'd say, if for whatever reason you're sort of blocked on budget for going for Luis Diaz, Darwin Núñez, or maybe even Salah in general, or Trent or Van Dijk, McAllister's cheaper than all of them. So if you wanted a cheap route into 3 Liverpool players for the double, I think McAllister is a nice way to do that. Right, a bit of forwards chat then to round off the video. And ultimately, with double game week 34 in mind, I think there is only one striker that I would say is borderline essential, or I could call it a great pick. And that's Solanke. Nailed on for 90 minutes, on penalties, a decent double game week. He's a proven Premier League goal scorer this season. I think he's got 16 goals, something like that. A great record. I think he's the only striker at the moment that I can say is a nailed on great pick. 90-minute man, takes penalties, ticks all the boxes for me. So I think really he's the only green player, if you like, with this tier list I've done. Decent pick-wise, I think you got Darwin Núñez. he's just missing so many chances recently, right? And he doesn't take penalties, and he's not necessarily nailed on for Liverpool. Of course, can't deny he's a decent pick. Same with Calvert-Lewin. He ticks all the boxes I think Solanke does. I think he's going to play 90. He takes the penalties for Everton. He's just not in as good as form this season. Yes, he scored in 32. I'll admit, it looks to be decent now. But I mean, he's just not proven it this season. I just don't think he's quite on the same level as Solanke. I'd put Semenyo in the decent picks mark as well. He's a lot cheaper than Solanke, but isn't necessarily nailed to play every game and doesn't take penalties. I don't mind Mateta for Palace. I just, again, don't think he's quite a similar level of quality to Solanke. And I think you've got to give a shout out to Haaland and Watkins as well. Yes, they've only got a single game week, but I still think they can go toe-to-toe with some of these double game week strikers. And you might be tempted, I don't know, to go a bit different and go for Jesus from Arsenal. I just don't think he's nailed to play both games of the double. I remember seeing a quote on Twitter of him saying that he's not played a game this season where he's not felt a level of pain from injuries. Yeah, with that in mind, I just don't think he's going to play both games or get enough minutes to justify a pick. Maybe you're thinking of going differential and picking him. I just don't think it's quite worth it. So yeah, as I mentioned, I think Solanke's probably the best striker going into game week 34. Villa and Wolves as his two fixtures. Could quite easily score in both of them, I think. And I feel like before the international break, when he was carrying that knee injury, just didn't look all that good. The knee injury was really holding him back. But given, he had the 2 weeks off of the international break, he looks to be back to full fitness. And I think that's really going to help him going forwards. Obviously it is. He was definitely playing through an injury, right? Like I said, he's nailed on for 90 minutes, takes penalties. He just ticks all the boxes that I personally like in an FPL striker. And he's got a likely double versus Villa. Well, not likely, it's confirmed now, versus Villa and Wolves. These must be comments from a previous week. And looking at the upcoming fixtures, they ain't too bad. The Arsenal one's obviously tough, but Brighton, Brentford and Chelsea all concede goals. So I think long-term he could be a decent option just to keep around in your team. Gets an attacking return in basically half the games he plays. 0.62 expected returns per 90 is really, really decent. Yeah, with that double in 34 in mind, I think he's probably the best striker in the game for blinkers on that one game week. Now, I mentioned managers might want to pick Jesus as a differential for game week 34, but I would suggest Watkins is a decent differential shout. Now, I know he's not a big, exciting double game week player, I'll admit, but he is the top scoring player in FPL. He's got 33 attacking returns from 31 starts. I just asked the question, if you want to be different, could you hedge against some of the double game week assets and just pick Watkins? Bournemouth at Villa Park is a good fixture. Like I said, I think Solanke could well score in that one, but my God, I do think Villa could score some goals in that game. 8.8 million. He's got Chelsea, Brighton, Liverpool, Crystal Palace after that. They're not the tidiest defences in the world. I just think he could be a really good option. He's a set and forget, isn't he? Yes, he doesn't take penalties, but he's nailed on to start for Villa, plays 90 minutes, and is by far and away like their target man, talisman from all of the open play stuff they do. I really like him as an option and definitely think he's a good differential. Alright, and that's the end of the video. Tried to cover all of the assets I think are pickable and maybe avoidable there for double game week 34. I have to apologise, by the way. I couldn't get live for a deadline stream for 33. Like I mentioned in a community post I put up, my car had to go into the garage, unfortunately. And the only slot they had available, unless I wanted to wait 2 weeks, was this morning when I was trying to deadline stream. So, sorry, I just couldn't do it. Life got in the way. So I'm providing my service as a YouTuber with a video for you this evening instead. And if you enjoyed it, appreciate it and found it useful, I'd really appreciate it in return if you could give me a like rating. You can subscribe to the Golden Goal channel, which should be just here. If you want to see more content from me, I will have the ideal, well, in my opinion, the perfect free hit draft. That will be in a video coming out tomorrow. So stick around and subscribe if you want to see that. And I'll catch you in my next video. Thank you very much for watching.